No, that won't work because you won't be able to get there.
Ariana, we're live now.
Let me talk to you later.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people. And as always, please check out the agenda on our website for some links to ways we can support Indigenous communities, and reach out to us if you have ways, more ways we can help out. That's it.
A couple of items to add to the agenda. So item number 12 within the consent agenda, we're going to approve a 3-month extension of the caption builder's risk policy for the firehouse in the amount of $3,456. And then item number 13, I'm asking the board to authorize the mayor to sign the market power program agreement for the sale of full requirements electric service with the New York Power Authority. And then within the business agenda, I added item number 4 related to the cable TV franchise agreement or contract that we have with Spectrum, and the credit that seniors should be receiving each month. Motion to approve both agendas as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So let's start with announcements. Tom, I'm going to hand Tom Olson from the Historic Preservation Commission. Why don't you go ahead and take us through the Partners in Preservation Awards?
Great. Thank you very much, Tim. Can everybody hear me okay? Just a quick sign. Great. Thank you for giving us a little bit of space. I'm very, very pleased to announce that in spite of COVID, we are still going ahead with a Partners in Preservation Award this year. It is going to a Mr. Nat Tran, who's the owner of the IFO Vietnamese restaurant at 154 Main Street. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. There's been a wonderful transformation to that property. And in particular, what we wanted to recognize him and his staff for is that during the incredibly difficult months of the worst of COVID, and I'm talking especially for restaurants and restaurateurs, they managed to figure out a really good solution by building out their patio, doing a lot of beautiful plantings, and creating this really hip, fun outdoor eating area on Main Street, just a block or two up from the cluster of most of our Main Street restaurants. And so we're celebrating their efforts and really just giving a tip of the hat to a beautiful new space that's come out of something that no restaurant owner ever would have wished for, no village official would ever wish for, but an emergency that ended up making something beautiful. So I've already presented the certificate to Mr. Tran. When I did that, I learned that actually his father, named Sue Tran, S-U-T-R-A-N, is kind of the head gardener. So there's also this beautiful secondary story that the father is kind of teaching the son about gardening and passing on that tradition. So thank you very much for permitting us to say that and to do that. Tim, thank you for signing the certificate the other day, and a big congratulations to Mr. Tran and to the IFO restaurant. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I've heard many people are super appreciative of how beautiful, particularly the flowers, look in front of that restaurant. It's sweet to see how much pride the owner of the restaurant is taking in their exterior appearance. Next item, so we're going to hear from Lim Grace about the Ulster County Human Rights Commissioner.
I cannot start my video because somebody else stopped it. And also I would like to introduce Carl Brown, who is another member of the Human Rights Commission. Carl's just been there much longer. So Carl is probably better able to speak to specifics of what we can do in terms of housing.
Should we give some background? Sorry to interrupt, but just, we wanted to invite you folks to come, speak with us, because it's important to know these processes, but it's come up as a question, what do people do when there's housing discrimination? How do they report it? What that process is like and stuff. So that's why we're really excited that you were able to come tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway, my name is Carl Brown. I'm on the Human Rights Commission, the chair of the Human Rights Commission. I've been on the commission since 2013. Prior to that, the Human Rights Commission in that area had a hard time figuring out what to do when it came to housing discrimination or any other type of discriminations, because there was no structure behind that. They didn't know how much teeth that they had that they could do anything. So a lot of complaints that ended up coming into the Human Rights Commission, it was always forwarded off to Albany, and the Albany Human Rights Commission would take over at that particular time. That's because the job was split between two different human rights commissioners, between the Youth Build and Human Rights Commission. So the bottom line is, we kind of felt that they really didn't take the Human Rights Commission as serious as it should be. Okay, that's to give you a little bit of general background. I'm not sure how, if I asked you a question and went around the room, how many people would say that they knew about a Human Rights Commission in Ulster County? Not
Yeah.
too many.
Exactly. I hear the same thing from our constituents all the time. They're surprised to hear that we have a Human Rights Commission. So you're right on that, but that's why we have you here.
Yeah. Anyway, prior to that, coming on in 2013, 2015, just to give you some background so you get the meat of this, coming into 2015, in 2013, we started up because we found out a lot of kids were getting thrown in jail for unknown reasons. And they were getting a lot of time served in jail. That was one of my biggest complaints when I came on the board, because it seemed kind of stiff at the time. Anyway, to make a long story short, myself, David Clegg, we had wanted to starve the judicial system from having these kids be in front of them, because we realized that there was a school to prison pipeline that was actually going on. So we came up with restorative justice. We didn't born it, it was already out there. We just brought it back here and implemented it. So anyway, during that time frame that was going on, we were complaining about not having a human rights law. Around in 2015 to 2016, a human rights law was actually created to give us some teeth so that we could go after people that had housing discrimination, places of accommodations that were being discriminated against, rental assistance, and a lot of different areas. LGBTQ community being discriminated against. So we pushed, and the legislature came up with a human rights law. Then they had to give it to us so that we could work on it. It's been installed right now. So it's something as a guideline that we could be using right now when we see discriminatory practices that happen. And they're hard to prove a lot of times unless you have what's called like a track record. So if you have people that have any discrimination that's going on in the housing arena, and it's perpetual, please have them go online to the Ulster County Gov. There's a form there. If someone has a case and it's a proven case, fill out the information, get it to Tyrone Wilson, We will then hear the case. We have to hear all open cases, and we proceed from there. If we find out we can do some type of resolution, our first approach, again, going back to what we brought here, is a restorative justice approach so that we can remediate between the two parties instead of going into the punitive line. Okay, and if we have to go to the punitive way, what we're going to find out too is this our best way to go because we have certain dollar amounts that people can actually sue for? Or do we take it to the state level because they can sue for more depending on the case? And that's the way it happens. We can forward something up to New York State, okay, but we can't take anything from that's already been fed through New York State down to us. So if they go online and fill out a report, if it goes to New York State and the case has already been heard from them, once they come to us and try to file a complaint, if we find out, and I created an Excel spreadsheet for this with a pivot table, they have a case that's actually out there in New York State, we can't handle the case anymore. But there is a way. We're going to start having some hotlines that's going to be out there also, not just for housing discrimination, for any type of discrimination that somebody may feel. We just want to keep our community whole. I hope I didn't go on too long and you guys regret having me on here talking.
No, this was perfect. Thank you so much for explaining that. That actually clarifies, a bit more about, because I tend to just share every single link and phone number I can possibly find with someone when they're going through something. So now I know to kind of add a note, if you report something to New York State, like our local Human Rights Commission won't be able to handle it. So maybe try you guys first, before going that next step. So I'm going to add that note to my kind of copy that I copy and paste constantly. So that was a huge help.
But let me add this caveat. Now you guys have the benefit of the doubt. You got Lamina right here, who's on our board also. That information you can just forward it right to her, and let her bring it to us. And we go, hey, look, these guys got a valid case here. You should go ahead and fill this out. Or they can just go ahead and do it themselves. But at least try to keep Lamina in the loop. As we get a little bit better, we do a forum, let's say in New Paltz. We'd like to invite a lot of people to the forum so that they can learn about LGBTQ discrimination, things that may be going on, discrimination as far as being a person of color, discrimination because of your gender, discrimination because your lack of money, your economic position. It could be even discrimination because, you know what, we don't like you. It's the Hatfields against the McCoys. It could be white on white too. We handle all cases. When people look at discrimination, right away they think, oh, it's got to be the Black person. It's got to be something like that. No, it's not. When I first came on this commission, the majority of cases that we have been handling were people of Caucasian people, white people, more so than it has been for people of color. And the reason being is that people don't know or didn't know that we even existed. Because from the top down, they didn't think that we existed neither. Until we brought restorative justice here, right away, everybody wants to be on the bandwagon now. And that's how it is. When you get into politics, it's all about, let me steal as much money, much information from you so I can take the most credit for it. Sorry.
I like to call it recycling of ideas, but yeah. That's really great.
I like to call it lazy. Do your own things.
Very true.
Walk your own trail, make your own paths.
So that actually, I think, answers another question we kind of had, or I didn't want to interrupt Lim. I can hold it.
Oh, I was just going to thank Carl for being here and reiterate that, while the Human Rights Commission doesn't have, we don't have territories or districts, this is absolutely my community, and I'm here to serve this community first and foremost in this capacity as well. So.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you also. And my other question was going to be, how can we support you all? And I think just you answered it by helping spread the word about how to get that support. And, you know, maybe down the road, such a forum would be a really cool thing to do. I'm all for that.
After
Yeah.
Easter.
Yeah. Okay. We can wait until after Easter for sure, Lim.
It's either like right now or after Easter. So.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and you know, this is good also too. This is one of our biggest things we wanted to accomplish, was basically having an all-inclusive communities, okay, not just Kingston. So we appreciate you guys, and please work with us as much as you possibly can with Lamina. Sorry about that. My phone's going off left and right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Being here.
Lim. Thank you, Carl. I agree. I mean, just, you know, being reminded that this exists is very helpful. And, you know, we probably can't do enough to share with our community that, you know, these resources are available. So thanks again. And thanks for chatting with us tonight.
Thank you.
Next item, who wants to tell us a little about the upcoming Narcan training?
Free Narcan training, Friday 28th, 1 p.m. You can go over to opioidpreventionnp.org/Narcan-training. And we've been spreading that all around.
Where's that taking place? Online?
It's online, right? Yeah.
I believe it's online.
Yeah, it is online. And if you go to that website, and we'll make sure it's in the minutes and everything too, and we've been spraying around every which way. If you go to that website, you can actually kind of do trainings whenever you need to. So I encourage you all to check it out. I have a few more announcements, but Bill has his hand up.
Hi. Just a quick one. Over the weekend on Saturday, I believe it was, yeah. Another cold Saturday. The village with the Rotary Club members, the Rotarians, distributed to homes some 40 plus rapid test kits. People were able to sign up via our website. We are keeping that sign up open because we have more rapid test kits. We received a quantity this afternoon. So if you know someone who can't leave their home or would prefer having a rapid test kit delivered to them, you can sign up by going to our website and searching, and you'll scroll down and see all about testing. So we did 40, it was great. I want to thank Trustee Zip. She participated in the event, and it was quite successful. We look forward to doing more.
Thanks, Alex. You said you had a few announcements to share.
Yes. Thanks guys for all that you're doing on that end. Next Wednesday, February 2nd at 7 p.m. right here on Zoom, Stana and I and everyone else are inviting you all to join us for a Cannabis 101 Zoom workshop featuring our former state senator, Jen Metzger, from the Office of Cannabis. Forget the word, sorry. We all know Jen, and a local attorney, Wei Hu, who has started MRTA, which is the New York State Cannabis Law practice, and is helping out, basically knows all the nuts and bolts of these new cannabis laws and can answer all of our questions. So keep an eye out. There is a Facebook event, and I made a form that I'll be circulating so people can submit their questions in advance if you're not feeling up to asking them on the Zoom, and I can ask them for you, and Stana, I can ask them for you. But come through, we'll learn more about that. And yeah, that's it for, oh, and then the other final announcement is, yes, the state's eviction moratorium did end, but it's cold out. Don't self-evict. Evictions go through the courts. Like every day I'm seeing, you know, people thinking they're being evicted on social media or reaching out to me all the ways they know how. You're not, unless a sheriff comes and you've already gone through a whole court process. Trust me, I've been evicted, and it's a process. You know when it's happening. It's never an unsure thing. If you are unsure, there's resources out there. We're happy to connect you with them. So please stay warm and inside.
I had
That's
one
it.
with the snow coming, potentially big storm Friday into Saturday, just a reminder of cars off the streets. And we have the Huguenot Street parking lot where if you need to move your car there, it's on the way to Gardens for Nutrition, but not all the way down that hill. That there is that parking lot. And then I believe after, 24 hours after the snow has fallen, then you have to move your car again out of that lot because then they plow that lot. I might have that incorrect, but all those details are on the website too.
Right, you could keep your lot during the snowfall, keep your car in the lot during the snowfall, and then once it's done snowing, you can move it back to the street. I'm glad you brought that up, Michelle. We actually met with a towing company today because we had a significant number of cars that were not moved during the last storm, and we do not want any cars to be towed whatsoever. We want people to get their cars off the street so our public works staff can safely plow, and so the roads can be clear the next day. So please get the word out, remind your friends. No one should endure the expense of retrieving their car after it's been towed. Neither the village nor the town participates in revenue related to the cost of having your car towed. It's just a necessary evil to get those cars off the street so the cars are out of the way for our public works to get plowing done.
I have an announcement as well, or two. The town continues to seek volunteers to join the new Paltz Police Commission that's being formed. There'll be some initial training and then one meeting a month. Currently meetings run about an hour, and there'll be, a few emails throughout the month as well. And we're particularly in need of folks from traditionally underrepresented communities. Community members interested in volunteering should send a letter of interest to assistant@townofnewpaltz.org. And while we're at it, I'm also the liaison to the Zoning Board of Appeals here in the village. And we are in need of members as well. We meet the second Tuesday of every month, and actually not even every month. The last couple of months we haven't had to meet even. So it's sometimes you get a month or two off. If there is any interest, please email assistant@villageofnewpaltz.org. Thanks.
Okay, I think we're opening up this local law regarding the proposed zoning map amendment for the first time. Is that correct?
Correct.
I motion
sorry.
to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did we receive any comments in writing about this zoning map amendment, or is there anyone here this evening that wants to make a comment about the proposed changes? And I would add that this relates to the laws that we changed recently, where we would only have one mixed use district. Well, we would still have the NBR, which we're not touching, but we have recently changed the B2 and then added the B1 properties to this new B2. So is there anyone here, or did we receive any comments in advance?
We did not receive any written comments in advance.
Stana, were you gonna ask a question or say something? You were just stretching, okay. I'm comfortable with closing this public hearing and moving this onto the business agenda with the intention of adopting this law this evening, because this is part of an ongoing conversation that's approaching at least a year. So
Unfortunately, we cannot pass it tonight because we have not heard back from the Ulster County Planning Board regarding it. We anticipate that they'll have it on their early February agenda. So we could probably do it on February 9th.
So we can close the public hearing though, correct?
Totally, yeah.
Okay, I motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the unreasonable rent increase law. Do we have anyone who wants to speak to that law in particular?
Hi, good evening. How are you, Mayor Rogers and Board of Trustee members? I'd like to make a comment, please.
Just 1 second. So, John, okay, your camera's now on.
Yeah, thank you. Just a second, sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Hope that's a little bit better.
Yeah, we can see you perfectly. So just
great.
tell us, full name and where you reside.
Sure. My name is John Lytell. I reside at 19 North Street. That's in West Islip, New York. And I introduced myself the last meeting, referencing my aunt, Mildred Haig, who was a resident at 19 North Chestnut Street, and my relationship to the property, in addition to our relationship being my great aunt, as I'm executor of her estate. I have some comments I'd like to share with you, but please forgive me. I'm at a loss on how to share them in writing. I emailed to that assistant at address, but I'm not quite sure how to gain access to the Google document in an edit mode. And I was hoping to better share more thoughtful comments in writing than try to verbally say what I'm trying to.
I see your email now, John. It just came
thank
through
you.
not that long ago, so I can add it to that document. That is not a publicly editable document, just so you know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't understand that. I appreciate that. Really, everything I want to say is what I've written in comments, because I did give this a very honest, thorough, thoughtful review to share what I think might be constructive in some cases, and I appreciate the consideration of my comments. If that's sufficed for what I've written, I don't know if you necessarily want to see me the rest of the meeting. I'm more than happy to shut the camera off and let somebody else enjoy the spotlight.
That's fine. Or if you wanted to take a moment to just summarize where you're in your notes, you're welcome to do that.
I think I'd rather have the written comments speak for themselves. I really
No
put
problem.
a fair amount of effort into trying to portray them in the best ability of written communication I'm able to.
Perfect. I just wanted to offer you both options. Okay, anyone else here? So why don't we just make sure that it's clear that folks could make a public comment about the proposed unreasonable rent increase law or the proposed good cause law. We have a hand up. Oh, Bravin, you want to go ahead? I see your hand first.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Let me go ahead and lower my hand. Great. Very glad to be with you again. It's good to see all the members of this board. I wanted to speak once in favor, again, in favor of the two laws being considered on unconscionable rent increases and good cause eviction. Earlier this month, the state legislature failed to act, and the eviction moratorium was allowed to elapse, which means that tenants across the state are right now facing like the imminent threat of eviction and are currently losing their homes. The Ulster County Sheriff's Office has said that they will only conduct 2 evictions each day, which is good. It's good that the sheriff is progressive in that way, but it also means that if this process is enforced every single day, 2 families in Ulster County will face eviction. Along with our allies across the state with the Housing Justice Coalition and our legal allies, we've had to engage in contingencies to address this crisis in the wake of inaction from the local and state government. So we've had to connect struggling tenants with legal services as they face eviction proceedings. We've had to encourage folks to apply for ERAP in the desperate hope that the federal government provides additional funding because ERAP is an eviction defense. And we've had to ask folks to not self-evict and wait for the judicial proceedings to play out, which is a heavy ask because folks are afraid and they don't know what's going to happen next. Unfortunately, the only long-term solution to this crisis is passing legislation that protects against predatory rent increases and unjust evictions. This board has been considering tenant protection since July of last year, which is the longest that any city in the Hudson Valley has been considering bills such as this. The good cause law that was initially proposed has been split into two different pieces of legislation to fit the needs of this community. The board has heard testimony month after month from tenants, landlords, and community advocates, and the board has begun to see this month the consequences of inaction. And so I asked the board to please move forward with this legislation at long last, to take the necessary actions to protect New Paltz tenants. This process has gone on long enough, and I encourage the board to act swiftly to protect the people that live in the village. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Pravin. So Daniel, I think you may have had your hand up next if you wanted to go ahead. Daniel Shearer. There you are.
Sorry, thanks very much. My name is Daniel Scherer. I'm a landlord providing student housing in the village. I'm here basically to speak in favor of these laws, and I appreciate all the work that the board has gone through over this time. I don't think of it as wasting time. I think of it as crafting a law that's better meets the needs of everyone. I'm working from a document from, I guess, 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you folks have modified that, but I again want to speak to section 129-34. And I'm suggesting that the last sentence, which is 4 lines in my printed document, beginning with the words, "the no fault non-renewal notice," and I'd like to suggest that that be removed. My sense is that that first paragraph allows for a situation where it's just really untenable between the landlord and the tenant, for the landlord to, it's not an easy lift, but it's a way to end the relationship. And right now it calls for paying 3 months rent and 5 months notice. I did hear it mentioned, I think by William last time, that maybe that should be adjusted, the amount of rent that landlords need to pay. And what I'd like to suggest is that it be adjusted based on the size of the housing. For student housing, 1 month rent means I'm not making any profit that year. And I think the reality is that if I give a student 5 months notice that they're not coming back, they're going to stop paying rent at that point. But I do think, I was very moved. There was a woman that spoke last time. I think she was living in Southside apartments. And I think some of these larger complexes, and I understand some of them are being bought up by outside investors. I think in many ways, maybe more than 3 months would be necessary to protect people in those very large complexes with corporations that have deep pockets. So I'm throwing that out as consideration. But anyway, I urge you to remove that last sentence, and then I support this law. The second thing I just want to throw out to you folks, it's kind of separate. I've suggested over my comments over time some various ideas for changes that I think would be much more effective, really, in helping tenants. And what I was going to say is maybe if it's possible, the board could create, just an advisory committee, which I would certainly volunteer to be on. Maybe we could coordinate with the town, and just a small group of people that we could get many different viewpoints in, and then present legislation to the board. I feel like, the ideas that I've thrown out might be too much for people to kind of just think about offhand. But I think with an advisory committee, to really address the housing crisis, I think we come up with a lot of good zoning changes, perhaps law changes for the board to consider. So thank you very much, and I appreciate all the hard work everyone's done on this.
Thanks, Daniel. Teresa, you have your hand up.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to come and speak. I just wanted to reiterate a few of the things that Daniel had stated. I think he's on the right track with this. I think that an advisory committee for both of these laws would be fantastic. And I'm sure himself, myself, other people that are involved with these two laws would be more than happy to sit and speak with the village board, obviously tenants and all that. I just want to implore the board walk very slowly with these laws. I mean, I just looked at not the good cause eviction, but the other law, which I'm not as familiar with, the rent one. And I noticed 2 errors in it already. I'm not going to go over them here, but I will, meet with you guys personally to just point out the errors in that law. So these things need to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb. I don't appreciate, and it bothers me greatly, that people like Bravin come into these meetings. They don't live here. They speak in very broad terms about other areas of Ulster County that really don't have anything to do with New Paltz. I mean, we have a very unique situation here, a very unique community. And then you get all these people coming from Poughkeepsie and Kingston, and that's just really a lot of the things that are relevant there are not relevant here. So, I know he urges everybody to rush into things, and, this has been going on since July. Well, so what? There are a lot of laws that take a long time to parse out and figure out and, make it best for both tenants and landlords and the community at large. So I just, am encouraging you to walk slowly with this. And, we all live here. We all want to do what's best for everyone. The landlords I know want what's best for our tenants, and, they deserve that. And we deserve, our respective rights as well. So, I agree with what Daniel was saying. I think it's a great idea to have, people who are involved in this issue speak out on it. Landlords, tenants, the board. If we all put our collective thinking caps on, we can come up with something that's going to be, great for everybody. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time. Obviously, thank you all for your work and on the board and for what you're doing for New Paltz. So thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Liz and Matt.
Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name's Matt Elkin. People like Bravin might not know me being out of town. I am a resident of the town of New Paltz and a landlord in the village of New Paltz. I just wanted to speak to a couple of things that he mentioned right off the bat. It's been taking a long time to pass this law because, first of all, because the board has taken a really great pathway to collaboration with all the interested parties in New Paltz, including landlords. That's why it's taking a long time. There's been a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, there's been workshops, and we've been working on this for a while for a reason. And I don't know if Bravin's been to all of the meetings, but the ones about unconscionable rent, it's pretty noticeable that unconscionable rent has not had a lot of dissent from landlords. And the reason for that is because it's really not our issue to charge extra money and to hurt people financially. It's not our issue. But the reason why things are taking so long, and there's been discussion on language and line by line discussions on this law is because it's not a one size fits all law, and it doesn't fit this town. It doesn't. And it doesn't actually solve all the problems that many are claiming that it will solve. So that's why it's taking so long. And that's why it really shouldn't be passed. I heard Teresa say that it shouldn't be passed in a hurry. And I appreciate that, Teresa, but clearly it hasn't been rushed. But I also think that it's not time to pass it. So I would urge the board to think about that. Why is unconscionable law not having a lot of discussion? And why has good cause eviction been such a huge controversy amongst us community members? And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that the eviction moratorium lapsing, that is a really big deal for our country. It really is. And we all feel for the people that are out there suffering with that and dealing with that. But I would like to, since the beginning of good cause eviction discussion, we have been talking about data in New Paltz. We still haven't gotten down to data. We still don't know that. And Bravin just mentioned that he talked to the sheriff and that the sheriff's only going to evict 2 evictions per day. I would love to know how many evictions are on the docket for the village of New Paltz. I would love to know that number. I don't think it's going to be a lot. And I also want to mention that no one is being thrown out of the streets in the cold right now. I don't think that that's a real thing in New Paltz. If it is, I'd really like to see the numbers. I also would like to know why some of those people are being evicted, because that is one of the biggest problems with the good cause eviction. Sometimes people need to go, and sometimes landlord-tenant relationships have to part ways, and that is the essential issue with this law. So anyway, thanks as always for hearing our Wednesday night rants. I really appreciate that you're still listening, and I appreciate all the people that have been involved, especially the landlords that keep coming back, because all we want is to provide housing for good tenants. Thank you.
Any other, so Daniel, you still have your hand up, but I'm imagining that's just a leftover.
No, I just wanted a quick comment.
Okay, you get half a comment because you already spoke. Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify that when I'm suggesting an advisory committee, it's not about these laws. I personally think if you take out on section 129-34, if you take out that last sentence, I support passing this law. I was suggesting an advisory committee to talk about the next things that we need to do to really protect. I mean, frankly, I got to tell you, I think really protecting tenants and really benefiting tenants is not necessarily this law, but beyond this law. So that's what I'm talking about. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your hard work.
Yeah, I would add that a great place to do that is in our existing landlord-tenant relations council. That's a structure that exists. It's a great group where ideas can be bounced around, and if there are ideas to pursue legislation, that's a great area to draft something for the board to consider. So, you don't even have to be a member to attend those meetings. They're open to the public. So, I feel like people can be reminded of that. You don't have to volunteer or commit to a term. Just show up and share your thoughts. And any of that information about when those meetings occur is just on the village website. Any other public comments on these 2 draft laws? Okay. Do we have any public comments on any other topic not related to the zoning map amendment or these 2 laws we've discussed? No? I'm going to motion that we
got
move.
some written ones.
Okay, do you want to walk us through those? Please do that.
I'll do my best. We already heard from John Lytell, but also his written version has been submitted. Next one is from Tova Goldfarb, who has been renting in the village for over a decade now. and says they support good cause lease renewal proposition. They're a public school teacher here in the Hudson Valley, an alumnus of the college. They simply can't afford to live in the town they love. They say, my friends and family can't afford to live here either, let alone families in need of secure housing. Please stand up for children and their families before it's too late. Tova Goldfarb. This next one is from Mark Gavigan, landlord over at 41 South Chestnut. This is a long one. Cites the January 12th meeting, comments made by Rachel LeBert, who just moved out of the village, saying one of the reasons they couldn't stay was at their last rental was because of serious safety situation with another resident stalking me. So what Mark says is Ms. LeBert continued that she did not feel comfortable reporting the situation to her landlord because she feared her lease wouldn't be renewed. First, I wish Ms. LeBert had gone to the police and reported this serious safety concern. Second, whether they reported to the police or her landlord, the good cause eviction law forces the landlord to renew the lease of the allegedly stalking tenant unless that tenant is convicted of a crime. Why should the village require Rachel and others in the building to either leave or permanently live in danger or discomfort? If a judge decides there isn't enough evidence and the alleged stalker's lease must be renewed, the only option for the landlord and other tenants is for the landlord to pay 25% of an entire year's rent to that alleged stalker. This is just plain wrong. Why is the village creating financial incentives and legal tools that enable a small number of truly bad people to terrorize and hold hostage all the other good tenants and landlords? That was from Mark. And that's all I see here.
Okay, I motion to move the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So let's start with the business agenda. Does anyone want to take on item number 1 and summarize anything related to climate equity and justice? We can go ahead, or do you want to say something else?
I mean, I think it's just always important to reiterate, the intersections of these issues, especially the 2 pieces of legislation that we are continuing to consider, unreasonable rent increase and good cause eviction, more so the good cause law, totally relates to, matters of the climate crisis we're in the middle of, with worsening weather conditions and unpredictable weather conditions, all matters of equity, and justice as well. So just a reminder, our frontline communities in every sense of the word are most at risk when it comes to all things housing.
Okay, is Tom Olson still with us? There is Tom.
Sure am.
Go ahead and tell us, we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago and we were just circling back. Tell us where we are in terms of this process and next steps regarding the Historic Preservation Commission and the resolutions and the update to our local zoning.
Yep, absolutely. Actually, I think that it would not involve updates to local zoning. So if you look at the agenda, there's actually an A and a B. So let me deal with A first. The thinking now is that the HPC, as I mentioned at the last meeting, is empowered to recommend to the village board the creation of a new district or districts on the basis of reasonable cause to do so. So I think that's where we are. We have been talking for a very long time about the downtown area. In recent weeks, we've had some pretty enthusiastic response from the residents on Elting and on Wirtz, and most recently, one resident on the upper part of Plattekill between Main Street and Hasbrook. And so in our minds, there's still a little bit of uncertainty about the outer limits of the district. but a real conviction that we should be moving ahead with a specific recommendation to you all for your consideration. And so I would actually say that we can probably, by your next meeting, have something concrete for you to consider, and then I hope open a public hearing in expectation that the public will want to talk about this. I'm doing my very best to reach out to the people that I know, and on Elting and on Wirtz, there are little community lists or neighborhood lists, and our proposals have been distributed. And so far, I have not heard any direct opposition to including those areas. So Tim, I think that's where we are with the downtown district. We're going to be recommending the entirety of Main Street, the district that was already established by the state and national register, plus probably 2 to 3 additional streets that really should have been in there from the beginning. And then very briefly, part B is our recommendation that we change our own name to include the language of design review to more accurately represent what we have been doing and what we would anticipate doing more of. And like the other idea, I think that by your next meeting or very soon after that, we can have something concrete to you that you can consider, and then I hope again open a public hearing on. So my hope this evening is that I could answer any questions that the village board might have. And Tim had mentioned to me earlier, I guess earlier this week or late last week, that the board would be willing to hear very brief comments on this before a formal public hearing. And we may have some people who'd like to do that. Is there anything I can clarify before sort of opening it up to other discussion?
I see John Lytell's hand up. I don't know if he had a question for you, Tom.
Sure. John, is that a question for me?
Maybe his hand was just still raised from earlier. Sorry.
Yeah, I was sorry. I was hoping for a little clarification regarding my comments. I noticed they were referenced that I submitted any, but I also noticed none of them were read as the other written comments were read. And I guess my question is, having them read, is that the only opportunity for the board to actually listen to them and begin to think about them, or will these actually be reviewed at a later date? Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, John. Yeah.
And I'm happy to read them and support my own point if that opportunity is available.
Well, I, for one, didn't have a chance. I think they came in right before the meeting, so I didn't have a chance to take them all in. I did do a quick skim of it. They absolutely will be taken into consideration, but typically with public comment, that is something that we sort of ingest post-meeting, or perhaps if there's a discussion later on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know that there's a lot there, and forgive me for going on in detail, but I really thought it was well worth me giving this an honest, detailed look and giving this all my attention to provide the most constructive set of comments that I could in a very comprehensive manner that I hope helps all parties. I don't want anyone to think I'm necessarily for or against this law. There are things in it I'm for and there's things in it I'm against, but to characterize the whole thing, I'm not for or against it. I think that would be a mischaracterization of my position. I'm just simply suggesting in those length of comments that I think there's an opportunity to reconsider some of the language in it vis-a-vis some of the comments that were made related to why is this taking so long? And I think that's because the board is being very considerate of all the different parties' inputs and contribution. So again, I'll let you go on with the next part of this meeting, and I apologize for interrupting this section of it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, John, we're going to discuss the the two draft laws during the business portion of our meeting. So definitely stick around. And because it's Zoom and, you know, formats are a little bit loosey-goosey, we can make it somewhat conversational, just like we've done with our workshop meetings. And I don't know if Dennis McGee, I saw that you just joined. I think you are interested in this, these proposals as well. So I encourage you to stick around, and we can hear from you if you'd like to comment during that portion. But let's get back to
Tim. Hey, Tim, one second. I appreciate that. I'm a big fan of Tom's, but I just wanted to bring to his attention at the last planning board meeting, Tom, and I don't know if you hung around to see it, but again, this is, I'm just going to throw it out to you. There was a little bit of concern, not on my part, but changing the name. I'm looking at your whole sheet now. I don't have the video.
I'll do the same, Dennis.
I'm going through your whole sheet now. To me, I understand what you want to do, but they were a little bit concerned about after you say recommending changing the legal name to the Design Review Board. Now, I know you don't have in mind that you're going to go in and tell everybody how to design buildings. So I'm just saying to you, maybe you can explain that a little bit more to them so they understand that that's not your intent.
I appreciate
that's a great
that,
question.
Dennis.
That's a great question, Dennis. Thanks. Tom, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dennis, any comment from you means a lot to me. I'm going to repay the favor. You've always been so thoughtful about this initiative and careful about these details. Let me just, I guess I can respond briefly, and then if anybody wants to follow up. One of the things that the HPC doesn't want to do is impose a particular vision on the community, to go out and tell people what to do, because it always works in the reverse. People have an idea that they want to renovate or they want to do something, and we're there to make, I think of it as kind of like putting some guardrails around the worst excesses or the worst decisions that a property owner could make. So in terms of, for me, the key word there is review rather than design. Yeah, we're going to look at your designs, but we're going to help you get another set of eyes and another set of ears as you're thinking about something you'd like to do to your property. But Dennis, I totally take the point that we've got to do a better job of communicating that, because it can sound scary. And if our own planning board, isn't getting it, then obviously the mistake is on our part that we're not adequately communicating that.
Well, what you just said now, Tom, and again, I really, at some point, like to get more involved with what you do. But what you just said now is very, very good. You said, we're not going to tell you what to do. We're going to review it. And I think it was a few years back, we met up in a group of us men, and even coming down to facades and sidings and different things. A lot of these people who do renovations have no idea what materials are out there.
Right.
And you would come in with your group, not to tell them, but to advise them what materials are available, what would look good, which would complement whatever they're doing. And really that term you use, just to review it and then add some positive comments. So that to me, what you just said is great. And off the record, I'll try to filter it to the other people on the board.
Sure, and I'm always happy to make an appearance if you want me. One of the things that Tim has said for a long time, which I've really taken to heart, is, here is this free advice panel, right? We don't charge anything for these services, and no, we're not architects. No, we can't do the project for you, but we can tell you about materials. We can tell you if what you have in mind is architecturally consistent or complementary in a good way. So yeah, Dennis, I take the point, and I've made some notes about how we've got to communicate that more clearly, that we're just there to help. You're absolutely right that a lot of people undertake renovations without really knowing very much about materials or designs, and they just kind of take the word of the handyman or the contractor, and we're there to be another voice.
I just wanted to add a comment if part's done, if Dennis is done and stuff.
I think Dennis is muted now, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just having lived on Wirtz like so many different times in different parts, like it just seems so obvious to add that in. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
And thanks for getting everything in the formats and stuff. That was quick turnaround.
Oh yeah, least I can do. I think you're right, Alex, and the the history to this is we had always wanted Wirtz to be in this district, and as I think I said at the last meeting, the state really kind of narrowed in on commercial property, which isn't really all that New Paltz is about, right? Wirtz being an excellent example of some of the best and best preserved architecture is on our residential streets, which is why we're starting to think about getting some of these key streets into the district.
Yeah, like for example, 17 Wirtz, when I lived there, one of the cool things about renting that in that building was like learning the history of who else had lived there over the years, when this was the teachers college, and apparently it was like one of the first off-campus, spots. And the apartment that I lived in was where kind of like the building, mom renter lived, and I was like, oh, that feels like me, and just so there is so much rich history on that street, and it feels so separate, like a separate world. So I just got to throw it in there that I appreciate that.
Great. Well, thanks. You've got a chorus of people who live on Wirtz who feel the same. We've heard some pretty enthusiastic responses. Is there anybody else who wanted to comment?
Tom,
So
I was also thinking, do you have a document or something that works like a memo that summarizes the proposal that we're considering?
I did circulate in the form of a resolution, or my best attempt to write one. Would that be sufficient? I mean, it sort of lays out the reasons.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. What I was going to suggest is to take whatever currently exists and massage it into a letter, like a heads up that we could share with the newspaper and social media, and it could be a co-authored letter from your commission and the village board saying that this is what's being considered. I feel like that might, in addition to Hudson Valley One is here, and hopefully we'll report on this. I think a co-authored letter from both boards just saying that this is being considered and that the community can expect a upcoming public hearing could be very useful.
That sounds really good. That sounds like almost like an open letter, Tim.
Yeah, but yeah. An open letter to the community.
That sounds really good to me. Sure, let me try. We meet on the 14th of February, and I think, soon after that, we can probably have something for you.
Okay.
Which means, I guess you guys would meet before that, right? So maybe we're talking 2 village board meetings. But I wouldn't want to put anything together without the approval of the whole HPC.
Yeah.
That's great.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening and for your support. And I really think we're moving in the direction of something that is not going to be burdensome to individual property owners, but is going to be really beneficial to the community, and also keep at bay some things that we don't want to have happen to some of our best architecture.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks to everybody. I'll sign off so you can carry on with your agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So the next item is related to the proposed Water District 5 on Plains Road. This is a project that the town and the DEP, with involvement from the village, have been working on for many years. This relates to the intermunicipal agreement between the town and the village. This is another amendment to that agreement, but it just adds language in the proposed amendment that we received from the town that would add that the town could contract to provide water to third parties, including the village. Just provide some flexibility in terms of how the water could be used. That would be sourced from the two wells, the property at 101 Plains Road. So my motion is to make that edit to the long-term maintenance second amendment and have the board authorize that I sign it and send it back to our colleagues on the town board.
Second.
Any discussion, questions?
Just such a dorky thing, but I remember the first amendment of it was when I was Ariana. So that's all.
Yes. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the next item was something that our community has been discussing for a very long time. When one looks closely at the cable TV franchise agreement between the cable company that serves New Paltz, there's mention in section 13 under rates that says when seniors pay for 12 months in a row, they're supposed to receive a credit of 1 month. The challenge with that is if you call Spectrum, their reps don't know anything about it. I've heard from numerous seniors that they've just given up on trying to receive that credit. I've actually heard from other seniors who are so committed to trying to get it that they are willing to spend hours upon hours, weeks upon weeks until they get it. And I don't think it should be that difficult. I actually think it should just be included automatically, believe it or not. I don't think people should beg for something that has been agreed to per the franchise agreement. Many of our seniors have been so frustrated with this. So what I'm proposing is that we send a letter to Spectrum Cable and the New York State Public Service Commission about Spectrum being in default of our cable franchise agreement as it relates to the discount seniors should be receiving. We should also, the language in the town's franchise agreement is similar to ours. It's a little bit different, but I would highly recommend that they go ahead and send a similar letter so we can share whatever we come up with the town board. And then also in the letter, we should make it clear that we would consider seeking special counsel for to investigate the purported violations of this agreement so that our seniors could potentially be reimbursed. And, you know, I wonder whether this is a situation along the lines of a class action lawsuit where monies could be secured and our seniors could receive the money that they should have been saving over the last several years, as it's been incredibly difficult. And, you know, Bill has been involved in trying to communicate with representatives at Spectrum. We've got numerous emails. You know, special counsel can dig pretty deep without a whole lot of effort, I think, to find numerous people who, you know, would be able to be considered a class who who should have received this discount. So I motion that we go ahead and send this letter to Spectrum Cable about them potentially being in violation of our franchise agreement.
Second, and Tim, just to sort of augment what you said, I've been working with a group of 3 people and following what they've been going through for the last 5 months. And as you say, it should just be a phone call to Spectrum. It doesn't necessarily have to be a phone call. It should be an automatic thing like a star credit. Whereas the senior, the customer who's paid 12 months without interruption gets that credit immediately. It wasn't until this morning where I reached out to the representative from the Public Service Commission that actually got the attention of Spectrum, and those 3 people received calls this afternoon. But that's not what needs to be done. Obviously, there are a lot of seniors in our community that are deserving and have earned that credit, and I fully support the sending of this letter to them.
Yeah, this should not just be about squeaky wheels getting credit that they're due. The franchise agreement does not say that you have to jump through hoops that are on fire to receive this credit. It says that the credit is due. So go ahead, Alex.
If we could make sure to share the letter also with our state level representatives, keep them in the loop. If we wanted to copy them on it, it might also, you know what I mean, help with a little bit of weight. That's just my one suggestion there. And in terms of, you know, special counsel, our state representatives very likely have their own list of constituents of ours that have been having the same troubles. So I'm an aye.
Very good. So all in favor of sending the letter?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now the discussion portion of our evening regarding the draft laws that we've been working on since the summertime. I actually think that's a credit to New Paltz and something we should be incredibly proud of. I really struggled with the original draft, and it's fine. I love drafts that need to be edited and massaged and reviewed and worked on. And I think hearing from our public is exactly what we want to do. So I think the fact that we addressed the unconscionable rent increase and added to it makes a ton of sense. And we addressed the Emergency Tenant Protection Act from 1974 that was updated in 2019. So we have, I think, a really solid law that we've worked on for some time. And the situation that we have with this law, I want to just share with my colleagues, you know, what else should we be discussing along this proposed law at this moment?
I know that Michelle did want to make sure to include it as part of this discussion, just like getting out there a summary of all the changes that we made. Or I don't know if we wanted that to sharing around otherwise, but I think just getting it out there on the record in a meeting is a good thing.
Yeah, you know, I just think we've been really listening to our community on what we're hearing is favorable, what isn't going to work. And so I just went through the law and pulled out what the good causes are for eviction. And I'd like to think that probably the majority of us will agree upon these, what the good causes are. It's unpaid rent, violated terms of lease, damaged property, interfered with others' comfort, illegal use, and that could be tenant or landlord related. Tenant refuses access, landlord needs property for personal use, property is for sale, major renovations needed. And sorry, Alex, I'm working off of my written notes. We were changing the wording substantially, and my notes are incomplete because I don't have the document open on my computer.
We changed that part from substantially identical to substantially similar. I did more research and found substantially needs to stay, but similar totally addresses what we intended. And I think will make people more comfortable that we're not expecting, exact copies of a lease, but yeah.
So, and also, I think a point that has not been called out enough is that this law is only enacted if a tenant has already been renewed at least once. This means if a lease for a new tenant is 1 year, and after that year, the landlord wishes not to renew, landlord may do so without, quote, good cause. Of course, we would hope that a landlord renews a tenant in good standing. And so that is just one of the things that we added that Tim mentioned that we pulled from California good cause. I personally still have a problem with 12934, the payout, the entire payout section. I'm not convinced it should be in there. I think if that's something that needs to happen, that's something that could happen without it in this proposed law. So that's just a couple of my thoughts.
Yeah, I see your comments in that part also. Thanks, Michelle, for sharing that summary, by the way. And I also see, Tim made the edit following our workshop meeting last week, to possibly just remove that whole part about, even more of a payout for disabled persons and senior citizens and people who have children under 18. And I'm with Tim's deletion. I just want to say I second that. I would like to accept those changes, but I think we should right now maybe just discuss Michelle's question, point, comment about just 12934 in general. And I think that seems to be like the last big, concern that seems lingering right now. How's the rest of the board feel? Let's talk about 12934.
Yeah, I think 12934 should be kept in the law. I think, laws need safety valves. I think when folks were commenting during our workshop recently that it would require 3 months rent to remove people, I just, that's not how this works. I think there are, basically it's kind of a situation where when you can't anticipate what a good cause might be, it would be the emergency safety valve. Because if we knew what it was, we would just include it as a good cause. But we don't know what that is. So it just provides flexibility and protection for the tenants. I think that's the reason why this exists, so that the law is not overly rigid.
So did our attorney review that section?
Yeah, he's reviewed everything.
Our attorneys have reviewed all of this every step of the way. and have the attorneys across the state.
Right, and I think that's kind of where the conversation that we need to be having. Last week we received a memo from Wade Beltran. I'm drawing a blank on his last name right now, but he's the lead counsel for the New York Conference of Mayors, who we rely on pretty regularly, and he expressed concerns about the versions of good cause that other cities have adopted. This was a letter that was composed for the city of Beacon in particular. Both the city of Beacon and the city of Ithaca have not adopted good cause, unlike, for instance, Kingston, Hudson, Poughkeepsie, and the city of Albany. I don't remember if I already said that or not, but I think what's very different about our village versus the cities that I just listed is that we are not in a position to comfortably pay for litigation. I think there's a strong case to be made for us to be, we've worked on this draft law, both of these laws, the good cause and the unreasonable rent increase law, and I think they're very solid, but it seems like it may be prudent to pause and wait and see what happens in the litigation that was filed against the city of Albany for their law, because it has actually become a lot easier for landlords in New Paltz to go ahead and call that same law firm that is representing the plaintiffs who are pursuing action against the city of Albany. And my understanding is that's, a fairly reputable law firm. And, we've already seen individuals in New Paltz show up at our public hearings with stenographers. So I feel like they're poised and ready to challenge whatever we do. I think it makes a great deal of sense to take what we have worked on and have it at the ready, but also we need New York State, particularly the legislature in Albany, to address this situation, because there is definitely a preemption risk, or the risk of being cited for this law preempting state law. We tried to address that in our unreasonable rent increase law by doing our own vacancy study for properties with 6 or more units. We highlighted the fact that we actually have a different type of rental stock than cities. But I think there is still interpretation that could happen that a judge might look at differently, and say that New York State has already addressed some of the things that we're trying to do, and therefore our law could be challenged. And I think we're in a unique position where we've created these 2 laws, they're ready to go, but I'm a little bit nervous about going ahead and adopting these laws when they could be challenged successfully. And, it was explained to me by our attorney is that, the city of Albany's law, let's say the judgment goes in favor of the city or in favor of the plaintiffs, like it will be appealed. And then it will be the appellate court, which would include both Albany County and I believe our broader region. So it would include Ulster County as well. So we would actually have real case law to hang our hat on. So that, that's another reason, like, this is not just us seeing like what might go on in some other part of the state. This is very much related to our region. So, that's kind of where my head is at right now, particularly based on the letter that we received from the New York Conference of Mayors Council last week. So I'll leave it up for the board to comment on some of these ideas.
I think much of what you said with 12934 staying in as like a fail-safe, we have the NICOM letter and the Albany case as a potential failsafe for our community, because I am concerned about litigation and the consequences that can result in that. You know, thankfully, thank you, Tim, we haven't raised taxes in the village for quite some time, and we don't want to do that, because if taxes go up, that hurts everyone. That will raise rents. And if we have an expensive litigation happening, then that could certainly become a big issue for our small community.
I mean, the bottom line is that the village cannot afford to litigate this, and that scares me. The thought of having to go through that concerns me. That's a lot of money, possibly, you know, potentially a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's what we kind of had looking, you know, we were looking at that since day one. You know, from the first public hearing, it was made clear that, you know, we were going to be, you know, held hostage in certain ways if we pursued this law the same way we saw historically, same folks went after the government here in the village for even creating the Landlord Tenant Relations Council, you know, security deposit return law. I'm not saying take it lightly, but I think we've had this thought in the back of our head since day one, because it was laid out for us by individuals since day one that if we pursue this, you know, we'll do it. And that's why we've created very different laws than what is in Albany. So I guess my question is, like, if whatever happens in that Albany suit would even wind up applying to us. And I got to go back and read the NICOM thing again, because it was my impression, because it's, you know, it's legislative, you know, wish list season. So I had like kind of that reading of it, you know, because it's that time of the year, and also kind of like a repeat of what they've already said previously.
What NICOM has already said?
Yeah.
Well, we had been bugging NICOM for months and months and months to offer us an opinion, and you know, they're a pretty conservative group. They generally don't offer opinions, so that's why, you know, when Wade finally authored this letter, and the date of the letter is Jan 19, you know, he sent it to me, and I shared it with the board. But they had not previously authored a letter.
Yeah, but Wade had definitely given like a at least maybe informal opinion. You know, and it's NICOM is opposed to this type of legislation statewide. It's one of their lobbying priorities. You know, not saying we shouldn't take it into account, you know, because they're a great resource and whatnot, but it's no different than, you know, I see it as no different, you know, than NICOM having been strongly opposed to bail reform, you know, and so on. The timing of the letter, you know, we are in legislative budget wish list season. We are AKA lobby season in an election year.
it just seems that unless the state legislature takes action and addresses this issue, the laws unfortunately are written in a way where it does seem like we would be preempted by the Emergency Tenant Protections Act of 74 and amended in 19. Like it doesn't, it's kind of like we've written a good law in response, but I wonder whether you know, the judicial process would feel handcuffed to rule against our law just based on what currently exists on the books.
So we did get agreed, very true, but we did get a ruling from the appellate court back in September 21st, 2021, I think was the date. And I shared it with everyone. It's in that shared drive that I've been circulating with the public and you all, where I keep throwing everything that I get. It was filed September 14th, 2021. I was off by a few days. But those concerns were totally addressed in terms of like, I don't even have my summary of it in front of me because it's a 91-page finding, but like that's like I predict the city of Albany suit is kind of it's going to go back and forth, but the appellate court is going to have to refer to the other appellate court case law that is already on the questions that the summons put forth to city of Albany is using. It's the same thing, slightly different law. It wasn't about good cause, but same idea. And uses, there is already case law set, is what I'm saying, and for all of New York State, not just regions, as of this past September.
What has our attorney Will Franks said about that September case law? Because I'm unfamiliar with what you're referring to, and I know that Will has also been discouraging us, and I spoke with Will today, and he feels that we will have to come up with tens of thousands of dollars to defend ourselves in a litigation. That's his prediction.
I don't know if he weighed in on that. I'll make sure to recirculate it.
But you said you have you created a summary of your review of that decision?
Yeah, I don't know where it is now. I only have 73 tabs open,
Yeah, I know that our board, I think, is particularly interested in the concept of unconscionable rent increase that was baked into the original draft and that we pulled out, which we could have easily just, added to the good cause law. And the reason that we pulled it out is just so that, anyone reviewing good cause or reviewing this concept of rent increases would be able to look at them and read them individually to hopefully make them more accessible. I feel like our board has said that is what they're hearing about mostly from our constituents, not necessarily rental renewals, but situations where, there may be, outsized rent increases that, just make our community incredibly unaffordable. Like, it was already expensive and now it's clearly becoming unaffordable for too many people. Unless, as Astana pointed out when I spoke with her recently, it's like, it seems like the recipe to live here is like, you can live here if you have a Metro New York salary to, help you live here. But, the idea of pairing the rent increase law with the good cause law is that if a tenant challenges a rental increase, and even if they're successful and a judge looks at the guidelines that have been set within that law, the reason that you still want to have good cause is because then the landlord can just be punitive and simply not renew unless they actually have a good cause. So that I'm just restating what the folks here already know, but that's why the two laws are paired together. But I think the challenge with, like, if we were to just do, for instance, the rent increase law, we still run the risk of it being considered preempted by the existing Tenant Protection Act.
So yeah, that's what that case law is. I just recirculated that and some of my thoughts on it because it from September addresses like the contracts law, takings clause question and preemption.
So Tim, I had asked Will to clarify what Wade brought up in his letter to us about unconscionable rent increase. And he said something along the lines, and I didn't quite understand it. Maybe Alex can clarify. He said the safest course of action is to obtain advance approval from the state legislature before enacting the law. How is that done?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's not something I've ever heard happen. Think about the plastic bag scenario.
Right.
That said, like, for example, on the county level, you know, Abe and Eve, and well, I don't know how involved Eve has been, but you know, all the reps who have been working on that good cause law for the county level have all reassured me that their attorneys say their law there won't be a preemption issue with whatever we do, you know, and there won't be a preemption issue with the state. Even though there's not a sentence in there. I'm like, where's the sentence that says that? And I guess the county attorneys are like, no, it's fine. See, and this is interesting too, because, you know, City of Kingston just signed theirs into law, and theirs is so much more stringent than ours. Like, it applies to, like, there isn't the 1 year wait period there. It applies to way more types of housing stock. You know, those are just two of the examples there. So I'm
Yeah,
curious.
but the difference, but that's the thing, is like, we live and work in a completely different universe than the city of Kingston and these cities in Ulster County. Like,
Right.
we're asked to do all these things with none of the revenue resources, none of the staffing resources. You know, it's like village government, you're looking at most of it right here. You know, it's like, we have staff, we have a public works department, we have a treasurer's department, we have a building department. It's just like, we're a lean and mean organization. And when we get involved in the litigation, it's expensive and time consuming. We don't have money. Like, it's very hard for us. It's very hard for us to formulate and pay for the expense that these cities or the county could. We don't have attorneys on
we don't
staff.
have that. Well, that's why we were offered, if it did come down to that, representation from Legal Aid Society. That they've made that clear. Like, do I could get a memo that would promise that, rather than, you know, just other words and stuff. But that's been something I've been, I guess, maybe not clear enough, you know, like, and because we are a teeny tiny little village is why we would be able to get that kind of support. And we've been, you know, promised that support if needed. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm like, I agree. We are a teeny tiny little broke little village compared, and it's so annoying. But that's exactly why, you know, the folks over at Legal Aid had no problem saying, if it does come to that, like, they actually would be allowed to help us and would love to.
But if it doesn't go our way, what happens? I mean, who pays for that? Pays for the penalties?
I don't know what the penalties would be.
Yeah, I don't know that there's necessarily penalties.
I don't think there's penalties.
It's more of the litigation expense. You know,
It's
it's
just
like
the litigation.
our challenge is, like, you know, we have staff that rightfully you know, need family plans, and a family plan for health insurance costs $30,000 a year. Individual plans is like $11,000-$12,000 a year. So when someone moves from an individual plan to a family plan, like we currently have, you know, in our upcoming budget with a few of our staff, that's a material number. You know, when we get $72,000 a year in unrestricted AIM, you know, we fight for that tooth and nail. Like, that's you know, a couple of people's health insurance. Like, we're the stuff that we focus on are like rounding errors for these cities.
Yeah, from what I can tell, there wouldn't be anything. The cost would be the litigation, and the cost associated with just passing law in the first place. The cost
And
of
I think
like
that
every notification in the paper we've had to make, and
also the opportunity cost too, because anytime our staff is doing this, we don't have Nancy and Will and the trustees and the mayor focusing on the other 39 things on our to-do lists.
So a claimant, if someone claims loss or damages, couldn't recover anything through the village. Is that right?
correct. It's not that kind of suit.
Yeah, I don't think that the landlords would be pursuing damages. They would
I don't think they
just
can.
be looking to shut it down, so that that would be the goal.
Yeah, it would just be a straight up shutdown, regardless of either of the two paths they could go with such a suit. And
I
I
appreciate
can
that
pull
we've
up the old info for you if you want, from all the previous suits.
Yeah, I appreciate that
It's
we've been
public record.
discussing this. We've been discussing this litigation risk for some time. But in parallel, we have also been working on this law to try to make it better. And I think these two laws are a better package than what we had considered. And I think that's a testament to the time that we've spent on these laws. But I just don't know. I feel like we almost have an opportunity to not be named in a litigation, but then we can watch what happens, and we have these laws that we've moved forward, which are ready to go, and then we can move forward when it's a more prudent time to move forward. And this is tough stuff. I don't for one second hesitate, because it's really not fun for people to feel like we're backpedaling or we're not committed to working on these things. But I think we have to be as careful and prudent as possible. And
I just don't know if I'll even be around by the time we get to circle back, but I hear that.
yeah, I think the law also needs to be bigger than any one of us too. It has to be something that fits for the whole community, and that's why it's a board decision. Do we want it? Do members of the board want to do anything differently at this time, or do we want to, take a straw poll in terms of next steps?
Well, I think we need to see what develops in Albany. I think we also need to see what develops overall in the state, what's happening. I'm referring to the litigation in Albany, but also what's happening at the state level. But I'm mostly concerned about the unconscionable rent increase law. I really like for us to move forward as far as we can with that.
And that's really the piece, whether it's baked in to the good cause law or considered separately. That's the piece that could be considered preempted by existing state law.
Yeah.
There are other concerns that, are we in violation of how contracts are handled, and whether we're violating the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. That's
The takings clause.
yeah, that those are different questions. I don't think that's as much of about what we're wrestling with here.
Yeah, the takings clause one was what was most directly addressed by the highest level courts back in September. Most clearly, in addition to the ability of localities to do anything they can to stabilize rents. That's like basically the summary of that 91-page doc that I just recirculate again.
It'd be great,
I
Alex,
think we
maybe-
really shaped this really well to kind of address that and work within that framework. And yeah, the URI is definitely the one that is slightly hairier, but that's why I like how we took it out too, and made it into a separate one, and made it just its own thing. And we addressed it in the justification really well. So, I mean, I think we're pretty well defended.
Do you want to?
My cat has something to say. I don't know what.
You want to ask Wade about that September ruling?
Yeah, I will.
I would love to hear his opinion on that ruling and how it relates.
Okay, I will do that. I think that would
Maybe
be a
send-
help.
What?
I think that would be a help. What else can we put on the to-do list so I don't have a breakdown? Anything else that you guys
I mean,
think we
the
need to
concept
do?
of
Let's do it.
the concept of getting someone to pay for our litigation, some benefactor. I don't know how that would work, or how we could, get comfortable that that's.
Do we ask Will what his thoughts are on that, or?
Well, if we find someone, like if Alex is saying that legal aid wants to represent us and memorialize that agreement, then clearly we would want Will to see if that holds water.
Is there any, like, being that Will is our attorney, would he have to still be involved in that whole process, or would it be something that we would just give to legal aid?
And would there be a conflict in asking Will his thoughts on that, since it would?
We do
representing
this all the time. Like we use other specialty law firms for different things. But you are correct, Michelle, in that Will would still keep his eye on that process. So there would be still some expense, but it would be a whole lot less than if Will was doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, it would be a lot like, the Occupy era, those lawsuits and stuff, and how those worked, with Valeria, when she was part of legal aid. I don't know if she still is, represented the occupiers versus the village. I love village history in terms of lawsuits. Very interesting.
Yeah, I think that would be easier for our board to consider in terms of an expense.
Get like a memo of like understanding of some sort and put that together and have Will look at it maybe.
But if we were involved in a litigation and we did actually have counsel that was being provided gratis, and then Will would still need to, be looking over everyone's shoulders. We would spend money on paying Will to look over shoulders, but I don't see that as a material amount compared to the cost of a litigation.
Okay, so I'm gonna circle back with Wade with NICOM about that September ruling. And I'm gonna find out more about that, getting a litigation sponsorship, promise, and get that all together.
I'm curious, and perhaps there is no answer, but with the Albany lawsuit, I mean, this could take what, months, years? Do we even?
At a minimum, several months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a long process, and it sucks. Like the timing of so many things sucks, and it stinks so much how politicized these things get, like on levels bigger than us. It's so not fair. Because our people deserve protections too, and we have to be so much more careful. And yet, state legislature and all these other levels are just like they're I don't know. Yeah, I'm just mumbling.
Well, one thing I have to say is, we've talked about the time it has taken to get us to this point, and I'm appreciative of it. And I think it's just created so much dialogue with our landlords in a way, and renters in a way that we didn't have before. So I feel in some ways it's gotten landlords to think about their leases and what good cause is. And, I seem to remember hearing from Matt Eiler many months ago, just about like these different good faith things that are occurring as a result of these conversations. And perhaps we are just in these conversations making better landlords and better tenants. I want to be positive like that, and think that just having these conversations perhaps is getting into the hearts and minds of everyone who has been taking part in this, to really think about this important thing.
Thank you, Michelle.
I mean, it certainly gives me pause when I saw, the email where our lawyer said that he agrees with NICOM's lawyers, and I am certainly concerned. I'm curious to see if we can get something worked out with what you've suggested, Alex, from legal aid. Because that would certainly allay some of most of my concerns, I guess, because to have to be party to a lawsuit that we really can't afford scares me.
Yeah, I think one of the ways we make New Paltz less affordable is, adding expenses to our general funds budget. So, we're trying to be thoughtful about, how we spend money that then gets paid for by property owners and tenants.
A way to work on helping make New Paltz more affordable would be something I spoke recently with Kevin Cahill about, which is maybe possibly as the village board working in some way with him on the legislation he has that will no longer tie school funding to real property tax. Like that's something that could make a difference for everybody. I know, just
Hells yeah.
Like that's something huge that could really make a difference.
Stana, would you be into, since you brought it up, because I was thinking I would love for us to have a resolution in support of that. A number of constituents have, reached out to me recently, about that. And there's a Facebook group of New Paltz people, all for like that piece of legislation, that idea.
I had no idea there was a Facebook group for that, because I'm all for that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I will make sure
I should be in that group
to send you that link. But I was going to say, would you be into co-writing a resolution?
With you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Sweet.
would love that.
All right, that's the next thing, homework wise, to continue our housing justice journey.
Because I really think that's a huge piece. Like, that's huge. You know, that's a way to really help property owners, and that can be passed along to renters.
Hells yeah.
Okay, so we have a few things to pursue. I see Teresa's hand up. I don't know. Is that from earlier or were you dying
No,
to?
I just have something to say about the Kevin Cahill proposal. If you're
Yeah, go ahead.
interested.
Sure.
So tomorrow night, the Ulster County School Boards Association is having a meeting with the legislators. Kevin Cahill is always there. We've been talking about what Sana was mentioning about the disencumbering of property taxes from school taxes. And I've been on the school board for 5 years now, and Kevin Cahill has always been in support of that. The problem is that really nobody else is. And last year at the exact same forum that we're having tomorrow night, I asked him, I was like, Kevin, is this really going to happen at some point? I mean, we've been talking about it for this many years. And he said no. I'd like it to happen. I think like you guys do. I think it should be, separated, and schools should be funded in a different way. Absolutely. But the chances and the reality of that happening, to me, being a school board member for all these years, is just whittling away. I haven't talked to him recently. I'm hoping tomorrow night that he will, if he does have a new plan for that he'll bring it up to, at that meeting. So, I can definitely circle back with you guys and let you know how that meeting goes. I go every year. It's a very well attended meeting. This year it's on Zoom. But like Senator Skoufis is there. He's very involved in schools. Kevin Cahill, they're all there, everybody. And it's a chance for school board members to talk about these type of things. So I'm hoping that he does have a new plan for it, but it just seems like such a mountain to climb, and it always has. So, my faith in it is dwindling, but you never know. Things are different now. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's a tough thing to do. So, yeah.
Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah.
If you could definitely circle back with the whole board with
I will. Yeah,
whatever,
I will.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we talk about it every year, and every year it doesn't come to fruition because it's such a huge thing. It's got to come from the state, and it's just not something that I think they're doing right or worried about right now. But I definitely will let you know what happens at that meeting. I'll send you guys an email. So
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Teresa.
I'm going to move on to the planning board report from our village board liaison. Anything new to share?
No, just some not major items on the planning board agenda last time. I believe it was last week. There's a proposal for a garage on South Chestnut Street, a yoga studio on Prospect Street. Zero Place needs to refigure some of their parking spaces, which they've agreed to do. And that's about it.
Got it. Okay. And then Stana, you said ZBA did not meet most recently.
The ZBA has not met recently, no.
Okay. Ariana, under exec session, it says discuss personnel matters. Do we have a personnel matter issue to discuss?
We do, and I can't remember now what it was. Nancy definitely emailed us.
Oh, is it related to? No, it can't be. Eyeglasses?
Yes. But you guys approved the reimbursement already.
Okay, so then,
So yeah, I
That's
don't think you have to do anything else.
so we do not have to do anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm going to motion to adjourn.
Second.
Did you guys adopt the bills and claims?
I was
You
just gonna say, motion, motion to approve.
Where is it?
It's the last
just
item on the
after,
agenda.
it's just before planning board and zoning board liaison reports.
Oh, I see it. I'm sorry. Yeah, motion to move
Skipped
bills
it.
and claims.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.